G'day plant friends and avocado enthusiasts. It is springtime here in Australia and I am redoing my irrigation. Continue to watch this video if you'd like to learn how to set up your own drip irrigation at your place. Irrigating using drip irrigation is my favourite way to water my outdoor garden. It's time saving because I don't have to go and water individual plants. It's also a huge water saver. By dripping straight onto the plant at a slow rate, the soil is able to absorb that. You're not getting pools of water sitting on top, and so you're not getting water loss due to evaporation to anywhere near the same way as hand watering or watering with sprinklers. It's very hot here in Australia, and I just find that it's a fantastic way to keep your plants healthy during the hotter months, especially your container plants. If you're not letting them get the adequate water that they need, they're going to die very, very quickly come those 40 degrees Celsius days. This is also great for your plants that are in the ground. And we're going to look into setting up our own drip irrigation for today. So right now I'm set up at a table and I've got a few other things, most of the things that I'm going to need. Now I need to attach my irrigation system to my new water tank that my landlord has put in. I have had it running off the mains, but I would like to switch that over to the rainwater tank. I also want to have the option to run it off the mains water if, for whatever reason, our water tank is empty. One of the things we need to think about with drip irrigation, or any kind of irrigation really, is water pressure. Now, often, if you're dealing with a fairly small yard, you're not going to be having too much of an issue with not having enough pressure. Having too much pressure is going to be more of a problem there. If your tap is putting out more water than your system can at any time, you're going to have problems. And there are ways that we can get around that. If you're running a much larger system, you might need to do some calculations to see how much you need. You might not be able to water everything at the same time. That's okay. But right now I know from the size of my yard, I can very comfortably run everything at the same time, and I'll have way too much water pressure. So we need to play around with that. So to start with, I need to attach my system to a tap. Now generally taps will have a connector, and we need to have some kind of a tap to go on to that so that we can attach all of our piping to it. So I'm using this one. This is a two-way tap because I'd like to be able to use the tap when it's not on the irrigation system, so I can attach a hose to one of them and my irrigation system to the other one. This will attach directly onto the water tank. Next, now we don't want to destroy our system as soon as we turn on the water, so I'm going to be using this pressure reducer and filter. Now the filter is what keeps the inside clean, because if we get rubble or any kind of debris in there, we're going to have some issues. It's going to clog up your pipes, and it's going to reduce the pressure going to it, so that if you turn on your tap, it's too high, it's not going to destroy your system. It's not going to pop all of the drippers off. Then we need the main piping. Now I'm going to run a main line all around my yard, and then I'm going to be attaching different lines from that. So for my main piping, I'm using this 13mm piping. So that talks about the diameter. I've got a 25-meter roll here. That should be adequate for what I need to do with that. I've also got a few other bits and pieces lying around the yard. I'm going to try and reuse some of those where I can. That's all good. Now, you don't just want to run a 25-meter length around your yard because you're going to be coming into issues, especially if you have corners. And so for that, I've got some corner attachments. So the pipe will attach onto either end of those, and we'll be able to go around corners nice and easily. Similarly, we have this kind of attachment, a T attachment, and that's going to allow us to run piping off the main piping. We'll need some end plugs as well. So these attach just like these ones do, except they don't have a through hole. It stops there. That way, that's what ends the pipe. To attach the pipe to the fittings, so attaching the pipes to our fittings here, we're going to need to use some clamps. Use a pair of pliers to lock them in. Once they're nice and tight, that's going to be pretty secure. You're not going to have too many issues there. So we will attach the pipe to it. I'll show you that in just a moment, so keep watching and I'll give you a demonstration of that. So we'll have clamps anywhere you have one of these. You need wherever you attach the pipe. So if you're attaching it here and here, you need one clamp here, one clamp here. Now I prefer drip irrigation instead of sprinklers. If you prefer sprinklers, you might want to look into that, but I'm not going to go into that in this video here. I'm using these 4 litres an hour drippers. So these enable me to attach these anywhere along a piece of pipe or at the end of a 4mm bit of pipe, and I'll show you that in just a second. This will enable me to give each plant a regular slow drip, 4 litres over the hour. I generally don't run it for that long, but that's how we do that. We need these because if we don't have them, water's just going to shoot out because it's pressurized. You'll need one of these tools. You will need this to pierce the piping to put your dripper in. You can buy these wherever you buy your irrigation supplies. And I also like to have some plugs on standby because I know that I am imperfect and I might make some mistakes, and I would like to be able to plug up the pipe if I pierce it in the wrong spot. Now I didn't come prepared enough for this, but I've got some 4mm piping as well. If I don't want to run a big bit of piping over, say, the side of a pot, I can use 4mm piping. I need a barb to attach it to the main bit of piping. I don't have any of those at the moment, so I'm not going to be doing this one today, but that's quite simple to do. So the dripper literally just goes on the end of that. You attach it to the main pipe, and this just acts as an extension for the dripper so that you can reach wherever you need to. Then we're going to need some hot water. Now, hot water is fantastic for this because we're using plastic pipes and plastic softens when it gets heated. We can work with it a lot easier, especially when we're pushing it into our barbs here. If it's a bit more malleable, it's going to slide over a lot easier, going to make your life a lot easier with that. So we'll be using that. I'm also going to use a Stanley knife. You don't have to use one of these. You can get specialized tools, but I don't have one. So that's all good. That's just for cutting the piping. I'm also going to be using a handful of taps. Now these are also 13mm taps. These will help me to isolate different parts of the system. If I don't want to run a particular part at a particular time, for whatever reason, perhaps it's on my garden bed and I don't have any vegetables in there at the moment, that doesn't need to be watered, so I don't need to waste water on it, I can turn that tap off, and I will be putting these around different spots. Ideally, you'd have one wherever you break off from the main line around the yard. I'm also going to install a timer. Now this is a battery operated timer. It's nice and easy. You can set it to all kinds of different things. Timers look different depending on which one you get, but it'll let me to set the frequency and how long I water for. I can set it for every 4 days. I can set it for 3 times a day. And I can set it for how long I want it to be watered for, so that I actually don't have to worry about turning the tap on, or probably more importantly, turning the tap off, because before I was using an automatic system like this, I gave some plants far too much water because I forgot to turn the tap off. So we won't be doing that today because I'm using an automatic timer. So I'm going to tidy up and see what bits I would like to keep from my current system, what bits I need to discard because they're damaged or for whatever reason. And then we're going to attach the piping to the tank and we'll start irrigating. So we've got a rough outline of my yard here. We've got the water tank in the bottom corner there, and we've got a bunch of plants, both in pots around the place and in the soil. I'm going to run from the water tank one main line around the yard. I'm also going to attach that to the house mains, just in case. I won't be using it from the mains very often, but it's there in case we need it. Then once I've got my main line established, I can then go around and start establishing my secondary lines. So I might attach these to taps, but these are actually the ones which will be watering the plants. So I don't have any plants being watered directly off of the main line. They're all on their own lines, which can be isolated with taps if they need to be. Now that we've got a plan, let's actually set it up. The first thing I'm going to need to do is to attach my tap fittings to my tap. That way I'm going to be able to attach the rest of my system to my water tank. I make sure that it is fitted securely, that it's tight enough, that I don't have any leaks if I were to leave the tank in the on position but leave the other taps off. Once that is sorted, I'm ready to attach my timer. So I attach the timer to the tap. Once that is in place and secure, I'm then ready to add the filter and the pressure reducer. So it goes tap, timer, filter, pressure reducer. Then I'm ready to install the rest of my piping. So I'm going to run it off one main pipe and I'm ready to attach that. So I just dip the end into some hot water for a few seconds, let that soften up a little bit. Then I can push that onto the pressure reducer and I'm going to clamp it with a clamp. I'm going to use these pliers to make sure that it is nice and secure because I can have more strength when I'm using pliers. I'm then going to wind that all the way around my yard. This is my main line, and I'm going to put a stopper at the end, and I'll make sure that I clamp that as well. Remember, you need to clamp wherever you put a connector. Then wherever I want to add another line off the main line, I just cut the main line with my knife. I'm using a Stanley knife to do this. Then using a T-bar and some clamps, installing that other line. I might want to use a tap if I want to enable myself to turn that on and off independently of others along the system. You might want to do this for a number of reasons. Perhaps you're not using the veggie patch during parts of the year, and so you don't need to be watering it. Then wherever I need a dripper, I will install a dripper. So I just punch the pipe with the tool and I insert either the barb, which with some 4mm piping to a dripper, or just the dripper straight onto it. Once I am satisfied, I've got everything hooked up, I am ready to test out my system. So I make sure that I have set up the timer, and you'll need to follow the instructions on whichever timer you are using, and give it a go. And there we have it. I have irrigated my yard. Now, do plan ahead before you go and do this. Make sure you have everything that you need beforehand, and it's helpful to have a few spare parts as well, some extra clamps, some extra connectors, elbows, and so on. Keep them in containers in your garage or wherever it is you're storing things so that you can use them in case you need to, because there is nothing more frustrating than getting towards the end of your setup and you're missing a piece. It really does make it hard. So go, enjoy, take care. And I should mention before we finish, do I put my avocados on drippers? Well, I have put them on drippers with a tap, which I will then turn on, but I do find that hand watering those and the plants which don't need very much, so I don't have my succulents on drippers, they can continue to be hand watered. Though, if you want to have everything on, all of those as well on taps, all of your avocado trees or your succulents on taps, that might work for you. It's about knowing what your plants need. Generally though, I will water these weekly during the spring and I'll amp that up during the summer. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. Please make sure you're subscribed to Scott Grows an Avocado Tree for more avocado and plant related videos. Thank you very much once again for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Scott grows an avocado tree. Scott grows an avocado tree. Scott grows an avocado tree. Scott grows an avocado tree.